The forest stood silent, an ancient sentinel watching over the land. Its dense trees formed a natural fortress, their thick trunks and sprawling branches creating an impenetrable barrier. The air was still, not a single leaf rustled, and the silence was almost deafening. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. A wall of fog and twisted trees greeted any who dared to venture near. The fog was so thick that it seemed to have a life of its own, swirling and shifting like a living entity. The twisted trees with their gnarled branches looked like the skeletal hands of ancient giants, reaching out to ensnare the unwary traveler. Sunlight never touched the forest floor, blocked by the dense canopy above. The forest was in a perpetual state of twilight, with only the faintest glimmers of light managing to penetrate the thick foliage. The ground was covered in a thick layer of moss and fallen leaves, creating a soft, spongy carpet that muffled footsteps. Stories spoke of whispers in the fog, eerie voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. These whispers were said to be the voices of the lost, those who had entered the forest and never returned. The fog seemed to amplify the sound, making it impossible to tell where the whispers were coming from. Whispers that lured people deeper, never to return. The forest was a labyrinth of mist and shadows, and those who followed the whispers found themselves hopelessly lost. The deeper they went, the more disoriented they became, until they could no longer find their way back. Some said the trees whispered the names of the lost, their voices carried on the wind, the branches seemed to move of their own accord, reaching out to touch those who passed by. It was as if the forest itself was alive, a sentient being that fed on the souls of the unwary. Others, that the lost themselves became whispers, their souls trapped forever in the fog. The forest was a place of mystery and danger, a place where the line between the living and the dead was blurred. The whispers were a constant reminder of the forest's dark past, a warning to those who dared to enter. No one dared to find out. The forest remained untouched, feared. It was a place of legend, a place that existed on the edge of reality. Those who lived nearby spoke of it in hushed tones, their voices filled with a mixture of awe and fear. The Forest of Whispers was a place where the past and present collided, a place where the lost were never truly gone. Ali scoffed at the stories. He longed for adventure. Treasure, the stories said, lay buried beneath the oldest tree, guarded by the forest itself. His friends Omar and Yasmin were afraid, but Ali's enthusiasm was infectious. They agreed to go, their fear battling with their curiosity. The fog swallowed them whole. The air grew heavy, filled with the scent of damp earth and decay. Strange symbols marked the trees, scratched into the bark like warnings. Whispers followed them, faint voices calling their names. They pushed on, deeper into the forest. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Section 4. The Shadow's Embrace. The trees pressed closer, their branches intertwining overhead. The path disappeared. They were lost. Then they saw it. A shadow, darker than the fog, slithering between the trees. Panic seized them. It was as if the forest itself had come alive, the shadows moving with a purpose, a malevolent intent. They tried to run, but the forest held them fast. The underbrush seemed to grow thicker with every step, the roots and vines tangling around their feet, pulling them back. Thorns tore at their clothes, branches tripped their feet. Every movement was a struggle, every step a battle against the forest that seemed determined to keep them there. The whispers surrounded them, mocking their fear. It was as if the forest was alive, whispering secrets and threats. The voices growing louder, more insistent. They could feel the presence of something watching them, something ancient and malevolent. Their hearts pounded in their chests, their breaths coming in short, ragged gasps. They could feel the weight of the forest pressing in on them, the shadows closing in. They huddled together, trying to find a way out, but every direction looked the same, the trees and shadows blending into an impenetrable wall. Desperation set in, their minds racing with thoughts of escape. Tools that once provided guidance now failed them. The compass spun wildly, the map was torn apart by the wind, and the flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced around them. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the shadowy figure was gone, melting back into the fog. But the fear remained, a lingering presence that haunted their every step. Finally, they stumbled into a clearing, collapsing in relief. They looked back at the forest, the shadows still lurking, a reminder of the terror they had just escaped. The shadow's embrace had left its mark on them, a memory that would haunt them forever. Section 5. Lost in the Whispers. The shadow descended, cold and suffocating. It crept through the trees, wrapping around every branch and leaf, as if As if the forest itself was being swallowed by an unseen force. The air grew thick, making it hard to breathe, and the once familiar path now seemed like a labyrinth of darkness. They screamed, their voices swallowed by the fog. Then silence. The forest stood still, victorious. The echoes of their cries lingered for a moment, then faded into the oppressive quiet. It was as if the forest had absorbed their fear, their desperation, and now held it within its ancient roots and towering trees. The whispers continued, weaving through the trees. They were soft at first, almost indistinguishable from the rustling leaves, but as the night deepened, they grew louder, more insistent, like a chorus of lost souls trying to communicate. Each whisper carried a story, a fragment of a life once lived, now lost to the shadows. Had they always been there? These whispers, these voices that seemed to come from the very heart of the forest? Or were they a new phenomenon, born from the recent tragedies that had befallen this place? The questions hung in the air unanswered as the mist thickened and the night grew darker. Or were they the voices of Ali, Omar and Yasmin, forever entwined with the forest? Their laughter, their cries, their very essence now a part of the woodland symphony. The scattered belongings on the forest floor told a story of innocence lost, of adventures turned to nightmares, each item a silent witness to the events that had transpired. No one could say for sure. The forest held its secrets close, revealing them only to those who dared to listen. As the light faded and the mist thickened, the boundary between reality and the supernatural blurred. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if urging the living to remember, to never forget the souls lost in the whispers.